If you have visited the town of Crestwood, Illinois in the past 2 decades, you might have unwittingly consumed cancer-causing chemicals. That is because of this man, Mayor Strangsack. As one Chicago Tribune reporter put it, everyone who worked in Crestwood knew you didn't question Mayor Chester Strangsack when he gave an order. So for more than 20 years, Mayor Strangsack and other town employees secretly augmented the town's water supply with water drawn from a well contaminated by a dry cleaning facility with perchloroethylene or PERC. The money saved by substituting the clean water of Lake Michigan with contaminated well water helped Crestwood give a property tax rebate and earn national reputation as one of the best-run towns in America. But a single mother of 3 children who developed rare forms of cancer knew something was wrong. That's how Tricia Cross, now 51, became a researcher, citizen activist, and whistleblower. Eventually, the lies caught up with the town officials when the State of Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, forced mandatory inspection of all the emergency wells in the state in 2007. But it wasn't until April 2009 that word got out to the public when Chicago Tribune reporter Michael Hawthorne wrote an article in which he stated that the city had been using a well with contaminated water with toxic chemicals for more than 20 years. The whistleblowers, 2 citizens, Tricia Cross and Tim Janesic, who had been fighting to bring justice into town for several years, had finally achieved recognition. Here's the timeline of events that took place in Crestwood since the contaminated water started being supplied to the public in 1985. As it can be seen, from 1985 to 2007, the contaminated water was supplied to the citizens of Crestwood without their knowledge. Finally, in 2008, the word got out to the public, and in 2010, it was proved that there was a correlation between contaminated water and cancer disease in the village.
Okay, let's go back on time. The water collected in 1985 by Illinois EPA indicated a concentration of 2.8 ppb of DCE in the public water supply well. In order to have an idea, 1 ppb is approximately equivalent to 1 drop in a swimming pool. But why are we speaking about this compound? DCE is an organochloride with this molecular formula. It is a colorless liquid with a sharp odor. It is considered a potential occupational carcinogen with huge health effects on the central nervous system. Some symptoms are sedation, spasm, and unconsciousness. Was this concentration of contaminants violating the public drinking water standards? Actually, the maximum contaminant levels, MCLs, allowable in public drinking water supplies established by the Safe Drinking Water Act are below the allowable limit of 7 ppb for DCE and 100 ppb for the second compound. Then you are asking, where is the problem? The problem remains in the breaking down of DCE and PCE in the environment, becoming vinyl chloride, and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency says that vinyl chloride is not safe to consume at any level. Were Crestwood allowed to continue using the well? Crestwood was informed of this contamination and was required to conduct quaternary monitoring for volatile organic chemicals, mainly these 2 compounds we were speaking about. The results obtained were 4 ppb of trans DCE in August 1986, and the confirmation sample taken in November of the same year indicated 5 ppb. The routine sampling schedule of the public water supply well was stopped because Crestwood officials indicated that the well was to be used only for emergency backup. Instead, they purchased the Lake Michigan water as their drinking water supply. Then, which is the problem if they were supposed not to use the well? The problem is that the Illinois EPA discovered that the contaminated emergency backup water supply well was being used illegally by supplementing the treated Lake Michigan water. The results showed the detection of DCE in multiple sampling events of the well from 2007 to 2009, with a maximum level of 2.6 micrograms per liter, as you can see in the table. In addition, the 2007 to 2009 sampling also identified the presence of vinyl chloride. Which is the origin of these chemicals? Well, the different soil samples taken show that the chemical contamination was the highest at the location GP6, as you can see in the map, directly behind the Playfield Cleaners facility. The analysis detected the presence of the primary dry cleaning solvents. As there is no available data about the contaminants of well 1, a bedrock monitoring well was installed at the location midway between the dry cleaning facility and well 1. Samples from the bedrock monitoring well detected the same contaminants found in well 1, including vinyl chloride. Only data from October 2007 is available, where the highest level of vinyl chloride detected in Crestwood Well 1 is registered, which was 5.4 ppb, exceeding the cancer-based screening criteria and the maximum level. Concentration of vinyl chloride that people were exposed while they were drinking water was sampled, but we have no any type of data from VOC sampling prior 1985. It is not known when the well was first impacted by the groundwater contamination. Moreover, no available information about the testing as the final drinking water was found. Therefore, some calculations have been performed. Illinois EPA review suggests that the blending rate over time was less than 10% of Crestwood Well 1 water and greater than 90% from the water provided by Lake Michigan. Based on available information, the maximum blending rate of well 1 used was 20% over short periods. Then, making some calculations, we can estimate a concentration of vinyl chloride in the final drinking water around 1 microgram per liter. No need to mention that the well was sealed and Crestwood has been supplying only treated Lake Michigan water to its residents since November 2007. The consequences: health problems, cancer. The consequences of this negligence can be observed in the same diagram. We can see that the rate of cancer for males was less than it was in reality, and more women than men suffer from cancer. Regarding the different types of cancer, the group of cancer which was detected the most was, as presented in the P chart, from breast invasive for females, and in the case of males, prostate and lung and bronchus.
The use of well number 1 is a clear violation of the Illinois Environmental Protection Act. This was a statement made by Illinois EPA in December 2007 after finding unlawful use of the contaminated well water. On May 1, 2009, a second-class lawsuit was filed by Crestwood resident Catherine Teresi. He accuses the village's current mayor, Robert Strangczek, former mayor Chester Strangczek, and other unnamed co-conspirators of concealing the presence of chemicals in the village's tap water and unscrupulously causing the tainted water to be pumped into homes and businesses. A third-class lawsuit was also filed by former Crestwood resident Diana De La Rosa, who lost 4 family members to diseases possibly linked to contaminated water. In response to public pressure, law came into action. In the response, Lisa Mandigan filed 58 pages of lawsuit against Robert Strangczek, Chester Strangczek, and Frank Scaccia, the former director of the Water Department, in June 9, 2009. In her statement, she said, and I quote, "Crestwood officials violated the public's trust and the laws designed to protect public health. Through this lawsuit, we're seeking to hold these officials accountable for their conduct and to make sure that this does not happen again in Illinois." That was the basis of House Bill 4021, which amends the Illinois Right to Know law. Madiagan and Governor Quinn with Illinois Environmental Protection Agency drafted this House bill in 2010. The main points of the bill are: passed by Illinois General Assembly and Illinois Senate, addition of specific notice and requirements to existing right-to-know provisions in Illinois law, notice in public about the risk of contaminants and dangers of transferring vapors of hazardous contaminants from soil and underground water into buildings. Noticing is also required when the EPA discovers groundwater contamination will cause threat to public drinking water supplies. If EPA forwards water supply matter to Illinois Attorney General Office for implementation of actions. If EPA issues a CO order. Documentation management by owners or operators of 10 years, which includes billing records and documents of purchase of water from other water suppliers. In a statement from Illinois' Attorney General office, it was documented that, and I quote, "We need to make sure that what happened of Crestwood residents never happens again in Illinois. The law needed to be strengthened to protect public safety and to restore the public's trust. The state EPA, because of the Crestwood issue, is changing one aspect of its water testing. There are more than 1,000 communities in Illinois that deliver water that they first purchase from someone else, another community or supplier. The EPA has always done its water quality testing at the supplier, and now it will also test also at the distribution point." This is the general location of the contaminated well in Crestwood. Through this aerial view, we're able to see the location of each soil and groundwater test taken and the most important reference points, the Playfield Plaza Shopping Center and the area near the abandoned Crestwood well. This area was investigated by Illinois Environmental Protection Agency's Office of Site Evaluation. Also, we can see pictures of the most important samples evaluated. The objective of the investigation was to, first, determine whether the shopping center may have contributed to contamination of the well, and second, to determine geology and shallow groundwater flow direction above the bedrock within the area of the abandoned well. In total, 4 soil samples and 10 groundwater samples were collected using the sampler GeoProbe equipment. Here we can see the real equipment used and a schematic view of this instrument. Both soil and water samples were analyzed using a photoionization detector, or PID. Also, purge and trap gas chromatography and mass spectrometry were used to evaluate any presence of volatile organic compounds. On the other hand, the soil samples were analyzed first through a visual inspection looking for any staining or other potential signs of contamination, and second, using X-ray fluorescence, a spectrum analyzer to detect any lead components. The EPA used their own developed and approved methods to take samples. Most of these methods are published in the Code of Federal Regulation and were created according to the Performance-Based Measurement System, or PBMS. This system consists of a one-size-fits-all approach to reduce costs and develop new technologies, but proved to be inflexible and ineffective when approaching different problems, thus being changed in 2008. This is, after the tests were done in Crestwood. Also, the agency underwent in 2009 a review of its methods for detection and quantitation, and its conclusion was that a single process did not meet the diverse needs of all programs. The reports also show the measurements of lead made by X-ray fluorescence in 5 sites, since local citizens were concerned that lead-based paints used for maintenance of the tower may be present in the shallow soil beneath it. This is a sample of one boring log obtained from well named GP5, which resulted positive for volatile organic compounds, together with other 2, GP8 and GP9. These results are summarized in this image, where it is possible to see that testing points are all situated near the shopping center.
The scandal of Crestwood not only culminated with terrifying health problems as mentioned and demonstrated with the figures before, it also led the population with an emptiness in authorities' reliance. In that point, we can emphasize the importance of process analytics and monitoring, as all this human catastrophe could have been avoided. Looking back to the earliest stages of Crestwood contamination, we can definitely say that good practice were not applied. With this, we not only mean the frequency in sampling, which was interrupted, but mainly in the misinterpretation of the experimental data gathered from the analysis. Collection of information was interrupted because of using another source, in that case Michigan Lake, and the interpretation of the data was not enough accurate, as the transformation of the compounds to vinyl chloride was not taken into account. At this stage, when neither the legislation was respected, it is impossible to think that the so-called license to operate was met, as there was no transparency of the issue and authorities only were motivated for an economical reason, lowering the costs. This is all from our side. We just wanted to highlight the importance that monitoring had in that catastrophe and how necessary the good practices are in any process in order to guarantee a good quality, not only for the product, also for life. Thank you for your attention.
If you have visited the town of Crestwood, Illinois in the past 2 decades, you might have unwittingly consumed cancer-causing chemicals. That is because of this man, Mayor Strangsick. As one Chicago Tribune reporter put it, everyone who worked in Crestwood knew you didn't question Mayor Chester Strangsick when he gave an order. So for more than 20 years, Mayor Strangsick and other town employees secretly augmented the town's water supply with water drawn from a well contaminated by a dry cleaning facility with perchloroethylene or perc. The money saved by substituting